How many pilots do we have in here altogether that are starting from scratch? Student pilots. All student pilots, right? Okay. How many are private pilots right now? Good. Just a handful. Okay. Good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're trying to get these television screens mirrored together so that we're not so cramped just to look at our safety briefing on just one monitor, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. So we might have to kind of squeeze in together and see if we can all view the screen. My name is Kevin Otterstrom. I'm one of the safety officers here at CAE. I've been here for about 3 years. Okay. A little bit about my background is that I started flying back in 1981 in a place called Duluth, Minnesota. Okay, I went there and took it as an elective. Okay, at my high school. I took Aerospace 1 and 2, and started flying out at one of the local airports out there, and I got my private and my single engine C rating out there. Had a lot of fun, and what I was going to do was go up to the Alaska bush country and fly the bush for a while, and turned out not to be true. So I went to the University of North Dakota. I graduated there with a bachelor's degree in aviation, and I got my commercial instrument multi-engine certificates there. From there, I went ahead and transferred out to the Phoenix area here back in '90, and I flew the traffic watch for the DJs, the television stations, and I did that for about, about 3-4 years I did that. 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, and I have more 172 time than I care to admit. Okay? I did that. It was a good time builder. I did not get paid for it, which was kind of a bummer, and but I did that just to kind of get my time. From there, I went ahead and got a corporate pilot position here in Phoenix. I flew for a company called American Fence Company, and I flew a Conquest 2 441.
Conquest 2?
Say again?
The Conquest 2?
Conquest 2, yeah.
Which Garretts did that have?
I had the Dash 10s.
Surely not the 10s.
About that.
Oh my gosh.
But
we have success.
Oh, there we go. Fantastic, so we can all see it on there. But from there, I flew coast to coast down to Mexico a lot. It was a fun airplane to fly. It was very fast.
How fast was it?
It was fast.
Oh, man.
So, but anyway, I went ahead and did that for a while, and then lo and behold, they sold the airplane out from underneath me, and kind of left me high and dry. So from there, September 11th rolled around. Everyone knows what happened there, right? I also did 10 years at Southwest Airlines out there on the Phoenix ramp. Partied with Herb Kelleher and the rest of the CEO people up there, which was a lot of fun. And I left back in 1999. So from there, I was left high and dry. I went back to school. I went to Embry-Riddle. I graduated with a master's degree in aviation, safety systems, and I was lucky enough to get on here as a safety officer with CAE. Okay, so that's my background. Eric, go ahead.
Oh, my background is nowhere near as exciting as Mr. Otterson's background. Way back in the day, we just invented airplanes, I think, shortly before we came on this. But I first started flying in 1988. A legacy family. Dad was in the Marine Corps. He was an instructor pilot as well, and he gave me my first hit of the juice. And I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta love it. I love this. I gotta do it. And so I got into it. But some of you will experience this. Certain life obligations came along, and I had to take care of those. But later in life, after I built up a little bit of a nest egg, and all of those life obligations are over the age of 18. He gets it back there.
No.
Kids? Yeah.
No, just dogs, but I was.
Dogs are pretty.
But I was part of one of those obligations for my mom and dad, so I know.
So what I had found is, I have about 300 hours at the time, and I noticed that I would be doing my real job, which was, the courts and law enforcement, probation, things like that. And I'd be dealing with stuff, and they'd hear something, like maybe this guy flying with the Garretts. The Garretts. Like, hold up. Oh, yeah, I wish I was doing it. And then back to it. When the opportunity came up to get back into aviation, well, I kind of fell into this, and I've been doing safety ever since for about 3 years now. Yeah. So I'm enjoying myself. And when I look out on this sea of young faces who are getting into it, I get pretty excited seeing that. So I love being part of the safety system. We like to say that safety and risk management, it's serious business. It's not a game. Well, actually, it is. But anyway. But Kevin, do you think we should go into the first video, introduce people to what we do here?
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can get the mouse to work correctly, because one of the things you're going to find is that, we're a little silly, a little ridiculous. Who's seen these things out in the hallways if you've had the tours?
Everybody see them pasted up on the wall, right?
The risk critter.
The risk critter, we call it the risk critter. Yes.
Part of our promise to you is that, some of the material, it's very serious. Some of it's very dry. We also want to kind of make it entertaining and kind of pepper it in with some unusual things that you're not expecting, so that when you see a safety video come out, every quarter we do a quarterly safety briefing with latest trends, the temptation is to say, well, I'm just going to hit play, and then it's going to play in the background, we're going to drink a beer and eat a sandwich and all that, and then we're done, we've done it. Our goal is that it's so entertaining that you guys are like watching this, and you're calling your moms and dads and saying, Mom, look at this, this is all it is. So if we do that, we consider ourselves successful. So here's how we formally introduce the safety team. And can somebody hit the lights back there? All right, let's get started. We have sound. We have Chief Instructor Flight Instructor Cal Portella. That's him. You'll see him in the hallways. He's very stern, but he's also very, very nice. He's a good guy.
Introducing David Wagner. David has 20 years maintenance experience working on general aviation aircraft, 18 of those years right here at CAE in Mesa. In Dave's time, he has worked as an aircraft mechanic, a quality inspector, a supervisor, a chief inspector, and repair station accountability manager. Introducing Kevin Otterstrom, an ATP-rated pilot with a master's degree from Embry-Riddle in aeronautical science and safety systems. Kevin brings 30 years of aviation experience as both a corporate pilot and working with the NTSB. Introducing me, Eric Farner. Oh look, I've got one of those radar guns. That's so cool. Anyway, I've got a Bachelor's of Science degree in Public Administration and a private pilot certificate. After a career in law enforcement, I finally came back to what I truly love, aviation. And then there's this guy. Somehow he's got his own desk and a company car. But risk has always been a part of aviation, so I guess we have to learn how to deal with him and mitigate him.
Hello guys, my favorite safety team. How are you doing? What is this risk guy still doing there? I thought we would have eliminated him by now.
Well, you can never fully eliminate the risk. You can only mitigate.
Okay, you're right, I agree. So no activity is free of risk entirely, but we should reduce it to as low as reasonably practical, right?
In this initial safety briefing, Brent Crow will introduce you to some basic elements of our safety management system and the critical role you play in its success.
Let's review some key terms to ensure we are all on the same page. Safety is defined as a place that is free from harm or danger. However, this place does not exist. Neither does this. There is always a chance that you can be harmed during your day-to-day life as a human. No place is completely safe, but it is our goal to reduce the chance of being harmed to as low as reasonably practical. A hazard is any object that can present danger, and risk is the chance that you will be harmed by that object. These hazards are usually small abnormalities. Take, for example, a water bottle, not likely to injure somebody if found on a desk in the academy, but has a much higher risk when loose in a cockpit or rolling across a runway. The SMS is a systematic approach to reducing risk through a process of continuous improvement. In short, when you make a safety report to the Flight Safety Office, We analyze the data from your report for systemic flaws that can cause risk. We then work with our management team to make corrective actions to our system to improve its operational safety.
Yeah, bro.
Our SMS encompasses all 4 pillars of an ICAO safety management system, which you can see here, and which more details will follow. As we break this down, please keep in mind that you play an important role in all 4 pillars. To begin with, our SMS starts with a written safety policy which describes management's commitment to the SMS in fostering a safe learning environment and a just culture that acknowledges that safety is paramount. There is also a guarantee that no action will be taken against someone who discloses a safety concern unless the act was willfully negligent. Through this policy, you can be certain that your safety concerns will be taken seriously by our safety management system. The safety policy also outlines who is accountable and responsible for the safety of our operations. You may think that because a safety officer sounds a lot like a police officer, that it is the safety officer's responsibility to wander around and find all risk, but this is not the case. You are responsible for your safety. The safety officer is responsible for the day-to-day functions of the SMS. In other words, we are data analysts. When data indicates a potential risk to the system, it is brought to the person accountable for the change. This will always be the accountable manager who has accountability and responsibility to enact change in our system. We are responsible for our own safety as well as the safety of our system. Our accountable managers ensure responsibilities are achieved. Responsibility can be delegated, but accountability cannot be. Next, our safety policy outlines a non-punitive reporting policy, which revolves around a just culture philosophy. This is much different than a blame culture, where the fault is always seen as that of the individual involved, and punishment is a solution of choice. All this does is create a fear of reporting. But in a just culture, we understand that the fault is likely that of the system, and all of us will make honest mistakes. Those who report mistakes are commended because they're helping the system learn from the mistake, so others are not doomed to repeat them. We correct processes and procedures as a solution of choice to create a culture of safety leaders who understand that they can save lives. Through this process, the system continually improves, decreasing accidents. Disciplinary action will only be given in the following circumstances: willful negligence or conduct malicious in nature determined by your peers under the same set of circumstances, a failure to make a mandatory report, and I'll tell you what's mandatory here in just a moment, or an attempt to conceal or hide information about an occurrence, criminal intent, or use of illicit substances. An honest mistake is defined as an action that was sincere in nature. For example, you were trying to do the right thing, but somehow a safety occurrence took place. The Flight Safety Office does not partake in any disciplinary process. We solely focus on identifying risks in our system. Our management team will use a culpability matrix to make a determination if disciplinary action is appropriate, with the use of a peer review board. For further information on disciplinary processes, see the Employee Handbook or Student Code of Conduct. Confidentiality is also crucial to the health of a safety system. System users must be free to make a safety report and know that their identity will remain anonymous. Identifying data is regularly stripped from any published data except in the following circumstances. Damage or injury events may need to be reported to OSHA, NTSB, or our insurance. Therefore, identifying information will be released as necessary to appropriate parties. For regulatory violations, the Safety Office does not disclose your reported violation to the FAA. However, if the FAA knows about the event already and asks us for identifying information, it will need to be given. If you ever have questions about confidentiality, please come talk to us. You should never be fearful of making a safety report. Why would you be afraid of saving lives? The last part of our safety policy is the emergency response plan, which outlines how we respond to emergency aircraft incident or accident. You must notify dispatch to activate this plan, and there is an ERP contact card in a technical log with contact numbers for you to call in case of an incident. Do not post anything on social media, and do not speak to media about occurrences. If you need to get a hold of a flight safety officer or deputy, we are on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And now to you, Kevin.
The next SMS pillar is risk management. We regularly analyze these metrics to look for accident precursors. For an SMS to function, it needs to be fed, and its diet is data. We collect data from safety reports, which come from an internal or external source to the Academy. Another source of data comes from our aircraft through a process called flight data monitoring. Nearly all of our G1000 equipped aircraft record flight data onto an SD card located in the upper right slot of the MFD. This data is regularly analyzed for exceedances and is used to detect trends. If there were 100 landings detected in January, then we will look at how we may be able to decrease that rate in February. This system looks for various pre-programmed exceedances such as VNE overspeeds, various engine parameter exceedances, and stabilized approach parameters and taxi speeds, to name a few. And now, back to you, Brent.
We also collect data from liveatc.net, and we host live ATC feeds for several airports, including Falcon Field. We listen to live and historic recordings to find ways of improving our communications to avoid accidents. We also collect data from third-party safety work groups, operational data, radar data, lesson grade sheets, aircraft discrepancies, and many more. But what do we do with this data? Put simply, we look for risk. One method is to ask the 5 whys. In the event of a runway excursion, we may ask, why did the aircraft go off the runway? Which is the event code of a runway excursion. The answer being because the left tire was skidding on the surface. Why was the left tire skidding? Because the left brake was applied. Why was the left brake applied? Because the pilot's foot was in the wrong position. And why was it in the wrong position? Because proper foot position wasn't trained. Why wasn't it trained? Because proper foot position isn't in the course material, for example, which is our root cause. Once we have found our root cause and contributing factors, we then assess the risk. The goal here is to determine what the risk level is so that we know both a priority level, but also what actions will need to be done and what management level must review the risk for action. The risk is scored based on probability and severity by at least 3 subject matter experts. If the risk is severe, the SMS will require the activity be ceased immediately until the risk can be reduced. Management must determine if the risk is tolerable and find means to lower the risk to acceptable levels. All identified risks and mitigation plans are documented in a hazard register. Our management team reviews all risks regularly in a 2-tier review board. To mitigate risk, think of the TEAM acronym. You can transfer the risk by moving the risk to another area or group, such as outsourcing. You can eliminate the risk by not continuing the activity which caused the risk. This is the most effective risk control method, but it is not always practical. You could accept the risk and continue as normal, or you can mitigate the risk through implementing engineering, administrative, or other such control measures. The difficult part of risk mitigation is to correctly navigate what's called the safety space, which if we put in too many protections, the company cannot function and goes bankrupt. An extreme example of this would be if we just decided to eliminate flight safety risks by not flying airplanes anymore. The other side of the safety space is putting too much emphasis on production and not enough on safety, which results in accidents or catastrophes. We need your input to help us navigate this space. Now that the SMS has identified the risk and treated it, the next pillar ensures that the treatment has been effective at reducing risk. For example, if runway excursions continue, despite all mitigating barriers in place, then mitigations are not effective and must be strengthened. We measure the effectiveness of these barriers. So if these barriers are found to be failing, then prompt action must be taken by our managers to ensure barriers remain healthy and effective. Most of these indicators are measured through various forms of audits and assessments. The fourth pillar of the SMS is actually what you're doing right now, training and promotion. All our SMS training is conducted on the LMS system called Pelisys by going to caeonline.pelisys.com. All staff and students must take an initial safety training which is given annually in December or upon first arrival. All actively flying staff and students must also complete a quarterly safety briefing, which is released every 90 days with new content on LMS. Watch ETA, company email, or MS Teams for announcements for when it's time to take the training and when each quarter's training is due. You can also access LMS through an application for the iPad called CrewPad. The application is actually two separate applications called CrewPad Manager and CrewPad Player. After downloading both, you will need to enter the activation code seen here. Then log in with your username and password. One note, if you complete the training on your iPad, don't forget to hit the sync button to ensure your training completion is uploaded to the cloud. Another part of this pillar is taking the SMS beyond the walls of our academy and interacting with the community around us. We regularly interact with these groups and many more on at least a monthly basis, if not more. Safety is a team sport. Another method of fostering just culture is to reward those who exhibit great exemplary safety leadership. To nominate somebody for a safety award, simply send the safety officer an email or ETA message with your nomination. Nominees are voted on by our management team and are awarded on an ad hoc basis. Your safety report may seem small and insignificant, but with the full power of the SMS behind you, our flight safety culture soars. No accident, safety is.
Lights, please. What you'll find is that Brent Crow, who's a global guy, big Star Wars fan, and man, I told him yesterday that the new preview, the trailer for the new Obi-Wan show is coming out on the Star Wars thing. The trailer broke yesterday. He was more excited than a teenage girl at a Justin Bieber concert. He fainted dead away. Anyway, a couple of key takeaways that I want you to have is that, even though we're wearing these red shirts, we are not police officers. We're not out there enforcing safety. What we do is we create a culture, we create an environment where safety can flourish. Back in the old days, when we were students, if a safety issue came up and it's like, oh, hey, I don't think this is safe at all. The solution was, you're fired. And because you're sitting next to him, you're fired too. Out of here. And no wonder no one would ever come to the safety people and say, hey, I think I've seen something. That's changed. The company is fully on board with how we do things here. And so are some of your airlines and the FAA. They come visit us and they say, wow, this is pretty cool. We wish that other flight schools would be like this. In fact, didn't you get an email once from the FAA saying, contact these guys at this flight school and help them set up their own safety office?
I did, yes.
That was pretty exciting.
We've had other airlines that actually come to us and say this program is outstanding. We're very proud of what we do here. We make sure that everyone's safe. We are basically data analyst people. We analyze risk, okay? We want to make sure that when everybody goes out flying, that they all come back safe in one piece, and they basically learned everything they have in that particular lesson, okay? Our goal is to make sure that everyone is moving forward with the career and doing it in a safe manner, okay? That's what we are. We are not police officers. We don't come out and we actually look for people to go ahead and actually break rules and FARs and the whole 9 yards. We don't do that, okay? We are to help you. The ones in the red shirts, now we do have a couple of new people that have just come on board. Anyone with the red shirts, we are here to help you, okay? You can stop by the office if you guys have any kind of issues that you want to talk about. And we also encourage for you guys to go ahead and fill out the voluntary safety reports so that we know what's going on out there. Without you guys telling us what's going on, we have no idea.
Okay. What's your name? What? Michiel?
Yes.
If Michiel comes and gives you a safety report, are you gonna like blab everything that he's screwed up to everybody?
No.
Oh, no. So you can trust that.
Right.
Because stuff is confidential. Who knows the difference between confidential and keeping things secret?
Anyone?
Come on, you guys are type A personalities, you're pilots, you're like, wait, no, I'm just gonna pick somebody like picking out a lobster at Red Lobster Tank. What's the difference between something that's being kept confidential and something that we're gonna keep a secret?
I think that confidential is in order to protect the system versus keeping it a secret is like you're doing it for your own good or to protect yourself.
I like where you're going. Yes?
Secret, nobody knows. We're not gonna tell anyone. Confidential, only the critical people who need to know will be told.
Bingo, need to know. Let's say that you had an event and you bounced an airplane, boy, really hard, and you bent the landing gear. Well, your instructor probably needs to know that in order to reteach you how to do your landing technique. Your training manager might need to know that because the training materials the instructors use don't cover landings well enough as they should. So they would need to know it. But if the FAA, maybe they want to know, I don't know, but we're not going to go and tell them. We're not going to call them and say, hey, what was the name again? Alex. You wouldn't believe what he did. Now, if the FAA comes and gives us a call and says, hey, there was a pilot who bent an airplane, his name is Alex, what do you know about it? We're going to talk to him, because if we don't, they're going to say, well, we're just going to pull your operating certificate. But here's the thing. The team has put together such a good, training plan for remediation that when that phone call comes, we can say, oh, yes, Alex, we've already got him in training on this and that other thing, and the WINGS program. And 999 times out of 1,000, the FAA is going to say, oh, well, sounds good to us, carry on. And that's the end of it. Because they want you to be successful, they want you to become pilots. Disciplinary actions from the FAA is only for people who are unable or unwilling to relearn things. Everything else, they want to move forward in a positive way. Kevin, you got anything else to add before I set up the next one?
I don't think so. Just remember that, like we stated before, we just look for the risk, okay? We want to make sure that, everybody is flying safe. Like I said, without you guys, we don't know what's going on out there. So if you guys fill out those safety reports, come in and talk to us. Our door is always open. We're on. We've got our phones on 24/7. You can call us anytime, day or night. And if you guys have any issues whatsoever, we want to know about it. Okay.
In fact, let's show them right now how to give safety reports anytime, day or night, with a pretty easy system. And that's our next one. Can you hit the lights, please? Oh man, I had to do this for like 20 minutes.
I'll see your chiropractor after that.
Oh man, your neck still hurts, doesn't it?
It does.
I'm sorry, I feel bad about it.
In this briefing, we will show you how and when to make a flight safety report. To start with, there are two different classifications of safety reports, mandatory reports and voluntary reports. I'll show you the list of mandatory reports in a second, but voluntary reports are any other event or suggestion. Please keep in mind that we thrive on voluntary reports because you are highlighting things that could lead to a mandatory report. There are also two report forms, an occurrence report, which describes something that occurred at a specific date and time, and a hazard report, which is simply a suggestion for a flight safety improvement. Here is our list of mandatory reports, which you are required to submit if they occur. Mishaps, which is any possible damage or injury, regulatory violations in regards to FAA regulations, runway or airport closure as a result of your movement or operation, emergency or priority declarations, which includes aborted takeoffs and any technical failures in flight or diversions for safety issues, near mid-air collisions, and environmental emergencies such as chemical spills. Here are some examples of mandatory reports, such as airspace incursions, damage to aircraft, porpoising on landing, runway excursions, fires, wing strikes, or bird strikes. Here are some examples of voluntary safety reports, such as dangerous pattern operations, call sign mix-up, aircraft exited with engines running, a right-of-way confusion. But we thrive on these safety reports. Now, to make a safety report, you can simply find a QR code poster located throughout our academy, or you can log into ETA and take the first link that you find when you click on the links button in the upper right of the home screen. Once you follow the link, click submit a new report. Then it asks if you're reporting as an individual, and then you're going to provide your name as well as your email address and telephone number. If you want to remain anonymous, just put a fictitious name. Down here, click the checkbox and put your email address, and it will copy you a copy of the safety report after you submit it. Then click Next. Here you're going to select what type of report you want to make, occurrence or hazard. Now you can give your report a title. Next block, it's going to ask for aircraft registration. Put in a tail number. If you don't know, you can put XXX, and you'll notice some fields will turn yellow if it doesn't recognize what you're entering, but it will still accept the safety report with a yellow field. Next, choose your level of confidentiality. In the description, please put a detailed description of what happened, what you saw, heard, and experienced, kind of like your story. And this field will expand. You can write a 12-chapter novel if you want to, so you're not limited on space. Next, click the event date and the time. Please note the time is UTC time, Zulu time, not local time. Then choose your event location. Down here you can check the options that apply to the report, and every time you check a box it's going to expand the report with more sections to fill in. It's great to give us more details of things we need, but if you don't need it, turn it off. Just make sure you provide us enough details in the description. Here in the flight details you can put in the call sign of the aircraft, or XXX if you don't remember, and then your departure point, planned destination. Next, put in flight phase, then key people. Tell us who was involved with the event. And please put names in here. Don't put names in the description of your report because it's difficult to keep confidentiality if you've got names in your description section. Next, click submit and a pop-up message will appear telling you your report has been submitted. It will reload the page in the background with your report number and a unique code. Please save those so you can reference them later if you need to update your report. Another note regarding mishaps, please do not continue to operate an aircraft after you've been involved in a mishap. Please shut down or land at the nearest suitable airport and follow the discrepancy process. You must report mishaps to dispatch with a phone call, to Fleet Management Department with a written discrepancy in the aircraft technical log, and a safety report to the safety office. Remember that accidents happen as a result of air chains, and there are potential gaps in our barriers to prevent accidents that we need you to report. According to NASA, there are over 600 unreported events for every fatal accident in general aviation, which if reported, could have prevented that fatality. So please take your responsibility seriously to make voluntary and mandatory reports. You can save a life.
Lights, please. Hey, Kevin. You ever go down to the hangars where the older guys are just hanging out, swapping stories about the old days? I know I have. And for a while now, I've been trying to figure out what's the best way to teach how to do these safety reports. And I realized, listening to one of those old guys, he was saying something like, there I was, 12,000 feet. I was going 150 miles per hour, and then I saw that my bolt on my thing was getting, and the wing nearly fell off, and we did this, and we did that, and we got back on the ground, and everything turned out okay. Whew! Those crazy old stories are actually a pretty good template for a safety report, because it paints a picture about what was going on. It paints a picture about what your decision-making process was, and it helps us to better analyze the case. Right. So that description point where you're typing in, that actually is the meat and potatoes. The rest of the drop-down menus, that's just added stuff, you know, that helps us out even more, or to prod your memory to say, oh yeah, that happened, and that happened, and that happened. But if all you do is just that description section, that's great too. If you can't get to a centric report, you know what? You can type it up as an email, you can write it out on a napkin and slide it up to the safety office's door. Any way that you want to do that, you can do it. The centric is the best way because it helps us to gather the data and we give it to management so they can look at how can we solve and improve the system.
Right, so the thing is that even if you're not sure about filling out a safety report, just fill one out. It takes you all of 5 minutes, okay? And in that descriptive box that they showed up there, tell us your story. Tell us what happened. Be descriptive about it. Tell us anything that happened, okay? Because it helps out tremendously. There's a lot of times where we'll get safety reports and we get like one line on there saying, hey, I had a hard landing and that's it. Okay?
Oh yeah, but I've seen those where it's like, hey, I bent an airplane, it's up to you to figure out how.
Yeah.
It's not a game.
Give us a time, give us a date, give us where it happened, give us what the aircraft number was, give us as much as you can, because we spend most of our time just trying to dig and trying to find out what happened to the aircraft. And the problem with it is that if you do have a hard landing and you're kind of going, nah, I'm not gonna write that one up, okay? The person that has the aircraft after you, if there's something that's broken, that's hidden, that didn't get caught on a pre-flight, it could create a lot of havoc for him, okay? So all we say is, if you're not sure, fill it out. We'll have the mechanics over there check it out, get a clear bill of health, and we'll send it back out on the line, okay? But you've got to tell us about it. We're all students, correct? We're all here to
Even us.
learn, okay?
Even us. We're always
So-
learning something every day.
Yeah, so, you know, that's why we have pencils on erasers. We make mistakes. If you make a mistake, be upfront, be honest with us, and just go ahead and tell us about it. It's better if you tell us about it than to find out later on down the road and something happened to somebody with the airplane that you just had, okay?
Now, let's talk about the voluntary safe reports versus the mandatory ones. Obviously, the mandatory ones are, well, they're mandatory. And you've kind of broken a wing off an airplane, that's pretty mandatory. But you know what, we prefer to nip things in the bud long before we get to that point. That's why the voluntary reports are so essential. The voluntary reports reduce the need for the mandatory ones. So you could be like, you know, there I was at 14,000, 13,000 feet, and then this almost happened. You know, we almost went into the restricted airspace. You know, we almost went flying when I was way too tired to go fly, and then finally I told my instructor, no, we can't do that. The instructor said, oh, we should go. It's like, no. That's a perfect example of a voluntary one, so we can see trends before they happen. And there's another piece to it. When we have a lot of voluntary reports coming in, it gives us feedback on how healthy our safety management system is. Because like I said, in the old days, people wouldn't trust the safety officers or the chief because it's like, I'm gonna ruin my career. And when we get the voluntary reports coming in, that's giving us a sense of how healthy you are. Have we earned your trust and confidence? And then there's another reason why we want to get those much more voluntary reports than mandatory ones. Kevin, should I tell them that reason?
Yeah, I guess you can.
Well, we're not gonna get in trouble, are we? We're not gonna get in trouble again.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Guys, check it out. Each month, if we're able to get our voluntary reports much more than the mandatory ones, our boss will take us out to lunch at one of those burger places that they got the fried onions and everything.
That's great.
So, yeah. So that's how big of a fan we are. So you'd really be helping us out. If you see something and you're like, well, I don't know if that would really be important to the safety office, because we've never even flown an airplane before. What do we know? Well, sometimes you have fresh eyes and fresh ears, and you might say, how can we do it that way? And we might say, well, that actually is a good question. We've been doing it so long. Kevin, why do we do it that way? We don't know. Maybe we should take a second look. Yeah. Another thing is, we have that data, as you know. So maybe you've been flying along and something kind of happened. We're like, I don't know. You might put in a voluntary report and you want that data so that you and your instructor can go over it and maybe improve your flying technique. It happens a lot. So we're always happy to oblige. As long as your instructor knows that we use that data for education and not for discipline.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to fill them out, okay? Like I said, it takes you all probably about 5 or 10 minutes to go ahead and fill it out depending on how much stuff you put in there. But if you guys have any questions, guys and gals, if you guys have any questions about filling them out, just come in and see us in the safety office. We'll walk you through it, and it's a piece of cake, okay? The biggest thing that we can send you people is that we got to have the details, though. We have to know what happened. In order to fix it, we have to know what happened, okay? And don't be afraid to come to us, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help you, okay?
We got a lot of tools here to help with that too. In fact, one of them is, didn't you just work on revising the FRAT form? What does FRAT stand for again? Flight Risk Assessment Tool.
There we go.
Yes.
It took me a minute about that, so.
It's a tool
that's going to help you to kind of look out into the world of aviation and the airspace and identify some of the risks that are out there. So why don't we just go right into that, and then we'll take any questions afterwards. Sure. Lights, please.
In this briefing, we will review the Frat form, which is a tool used by all CAE flight crews prior to a flight. We'll discuss what the Frat tool is and the basic process. Then we'll go through an example together, which will show how we eliminate and mitigate items on the Frat form. And finally, we'll show you how to submit it. So, what is Frat? Well, this isn't it. Instead, FRAT stands for Flight Risk Assessment Tool and aids in aeronautical decision-making by helping to assess the risk of a flight. The whole idea is, if we are better aware of the risks of our flight, we can better prepare for them so we don't end up in an accident due to those factors. The FRAT tool is mandatory for all flights under the CAE banner. In a nutshell, the basic procedure for the FRAT tool is you go through a list of potential risks and total up your risk score. If your risk score is greater than 23, then you need to eliminate some risk and record the elimination on the FRAT form. If unable to lower the risk to 23 or below, your flight is flat out canceled. You would submit your FRAT form and fill out a cancellation form. If your risk score is between 18 and 23, then mitigate any risk that you have scored that has a mitigation option selectable. You would record the mitigations in the spaces provided. If the score originally is equal to or less than 17, you would submit the FRAT form to dispatch and go fly. For solo flights, do not submit your FRAT form until you've reviewed the form with the duty instructor. And for dual flights, we recommend that the entire crew reviews the FRAT form together during the pre-flight briefing before submitting it. Let's walk through an example. You are a student solo with less than 100 hours in make and model, less than 100 hours in the last 90 days. You're going to Gila Bend where you've been there before, but there's no control tower and no destination weather reporting. It's 1 o'clock local time, and it's really, really, really hot outside. Density altitude is really, really up there, and your last meal was about 4, 5, 6 hours ago. On the FRAT form, you're going to score those risks. Then you're going to look to either eliminate or mitigate the risks. Elimination means you have completely removed or, eliminated the risk in its entirety. Whereas mitigation means you have lessened the risk by doing some sort of training, preparation, or briefing, but the risk still exists. So looking at our example, I'm starting to think to myself that certain risks I can eliminate include changing to the Goodyear Airport. That way I will have a control tower and destination weather reporting. And since I haven't eaten in a while, well, maybe I should just go and get a sandwich. And as for risks that I can't completely eliminate, but I can mitigate, well, it's going to be very hot outside, so maybe I should have some cool, refreshing water on board. And when it comes to that density altitude, well, maybe I have made some density altitude calculations that would indicate an acceptable takeoff and landing distance and rate of climb for my operations. So let's take that example and fill out an actual FRAT form. First, log into your ETA account. Then, click the link icon, scroll down to the link titled FRAT form and click it, and the FRAT form opens up. After filling in your information, select turbine or piston aircraft. Then, scroll through and select the risks that apply. From our example, here's PIC with less than 100 hours in make and model. Here are the others from our example. As you go through the list of risks, they may prompt you to think about risks that you hadn't even thought about. Are winds within 3 knots of company limitations? Are we flying over mountainous terrain? Say, are we in thunderstorm season? In our example, you can see where we come up with a score of 29. 24 or higher means no dispatch. So let's go back up and take a look at what risks can be completely eliminated. For example, a last meal of more than 4 hours ago, we can eliminate that by having a meal. Are we going to an airport without an operational control tower? We can eliminate that by changing airports. In this case, we're going to go to Goodyear. And by going to Goodyear, we're going to have destination weather reporting. We can see how the frat form subtotal went from 29 minus 10 down to 19. That means we're going to find risks that can be mitigated. Now, for several of these risks, we cannot get rid of them completely, and there's really not much we can do to mitigate them. But here's a risk that even though we can't eliminate it, we can mitigate it. Here's the other one that can be mitigated even though it can't be eliminated. It's going to be above 40 degrees Celsius, so have some water. So we find that with the original frat form subtotal of 29, we've eliminated 10 points, mitigated 8 points, for a modified total of 19. It's time to submit your form. At your email address that you provided, you will receive a PDF copy of your frat submission, which you will show to dispatch and keep for your own records. Thank you for participating in this briefing. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask your flight instructor, your flight leads, or drop by the safety office anytime.
Lights, please. No one's expecting you to know how to do one of these perfectly after seeing this video. What we want is when you first sit down with your instructor and your instructor says, let's do the frat form, you'll say, oh yes, this is that important thing those goofy guys wearing the red shirts wanted us to remember how to do. Another important thing I want you to remember is that the frat form is a tool. It's not the thing that dictates to you what you will and will not do. Well, maybe to a certain point. If it's over that score, it's telling you that, well, you can't take one of our airplanes. But if it's below the score, it's not saying that you have to go. There may be things that you're aware of that just isn't captured on the frat form, that you, as pilot in command, and that's what you're training to be, is to be pilot in command, you make decisions, and you're decisive, that you say, no, this flight should not take place. We talk about in the regulations how the pilot in command is the final authority for the safe operation of the flight. Doesn't mean that you're the only authority. What that means is that your instructor may have some input saying, well, maybe we could do this instead, or maybe we could add that. They want to have a dialogue. But once you've put your foot down and said, no, we are not going to go fly today, then that's it. Even if Kevin and I would look at it and say, well, you know, we would have gone. Well, it's not us. We're training you to make those decisions. And we're going to respect those decisions and say, you know, they made the call. I'm not going to go today. Maybe you're going to do some ground school or work in the simulator. Kevin?
These, once you get on your iPad, these come up on every flight that you guys take, okay? And what happens is that you have to fill out these frat forms on every flight that you guys go out on, okay? If it's a dual flight, they're asking that the whole crew, whether you have an observer or a flight instructor on board, fill these out, okay? Sit around and talk about the risks for that particular flight, okay? And what you do is they score it, and if the score comes out too high, then they cancel the flight. Now, all of us are students, and we're all here to have a good time, right? Learn how to fly, but we're also here, there are certain things that come up. You know, you have family issues, you've got, you know, you went out the night before, we get it, okay? If you come in to dispatch the next morning and say, man, I'm just not ready to fly, I just don't want to fly, okay? Go ahead, fill out the frat form, cancel the flight, and if you have any issues, come see us in the safety office, we'll get it canceled for you, okay? If you don't feel like you're gonna fly, you are the pilot in command, we will cancel that flight. Now, if you do it on a continuous basis, the CAE is probably gonna look at you and say, you know, what's going on here, okay? But the reality is that if you're pilot in command and you don't feel like flying, say something happened the night before or something came up in the morning, you feel fatigued, fatigue is a big one, okay? If you just don't feel like you got enough sleep the night before, let us know, okay? Let dispatch know, and they will go ahead and kind of cancel the flight for you, okay? Don't feel like you are in a position where you have to make that flight, okay?
For our final one, we're going to discuss, we're going to show the prop safety briefing, you know, the propellers and stuff out on the ramp. So if you could grab the lights, please.
Let's review our propeller ramp safety briefing. The basic aim of this course is to prevent accidents on the ramp. We don't want anybody getting hit by a propeller. So before you operate out on the ramp area, please follow these policies. All visitors must be escorted at all times when airside by a CAE staff member. Visitors must receive a prop safety briefing prior to touring the ramp. There is also a printed packet at the dispatch counter so you can brief your visitors. There is no running on the ramp except in case of emergency. Headphones and mobile phones while walking airside is prohibited. Notice it states while walking. If you're in a safe location on the ramp and you need to make an important phone call, such as to close your flight plan or call dispatch, that is acceptable as long as you are in a safe location. High visibility vests will be worn at all times when airside. We do take them off when we get in the aircraft to fly. Please have your safety vest on during pre-flight. Please no smoking on the ramp, and no personal vehicles are allowed on the ramp. Solo ceremonies are not permitted on the ramp. This is any large group celebratory activities amongst the airplanes. Large groups are acceptable on the ramp as long as they are close to the building and not amongst the aircraft. Students and instructors will not have guests or visitors present during pre-flight inspections. A flashlight is highly recommended to be on while walking on the ramp at night. The ramp has no lighting. You must shut down your aircraft if you realize somebody's approaching and poses a risk for a prop strike. The biggest danger on a flight line is propellers. In a busy, noisy ramp environment, it can be very difficult to locate which propeller around you is operating, and one can start up at any time. So please be aware of your surroundings on the ramp. To keep you clear of propellers, please use the pedestrian path and cross perpendicular to your aircraft. Also, when on the ramp, if you need to walk amongst the airplanes, please walk behind the aircraft. Watch out for the tail tie-downs and the fuel cans, but do not walk down the front of the aircraft. That is the human blender zone we do not want you in. Always remain well clear of props. If you see lights on or people sitting in the cockpit, please stay away from the aircraft as it's likely going to start up or move soon. If you need to be by a propeller area, for instance you're conducting a pre-flight inspection, always go to the cockpit first and ensure everything is off. Then and only then can you be by the propeller area. Do not approach the prop if anybody is in the cockpit. And if you are in the cockpit, please do not allow anyone near your propeller area. What's wrong with this picture? Exactly what we just talked about. Please do not be in the cockpit while somebody is near the propeller area. If you need to move a propeller, and we try not to move a prop if we don't have to, but if you need to, a flat hand on a prop, move the prop in the backwards direction of normal travel so you do not engage the impulse coupler and get a spark in the cylinder, and always have an escape stance. We do not hand crank airplanes here, and we never get in or out of the aircraft with the engine running. Before starting the engine, always yell, "Clear prop!" really loud. Get everyone's attention around you. Do not just immediately start cranking either. Wait a few seconds to ensure nobody's calling you out or trying to usher you to stop the start sequence. Once you have verified it is clear, you can then crank your engine. We only put chocks in or out when the engine is off. Know your ICAO hand signals. Always ensure that you're able to communicate with ground staff or marshalers. There is a full briefing on ground operations in the LMS. Prior to shutting down the engine, always check to ensure the magnetos are properly grounded by selecting left, then right magneto, and you should hear a drop of RPM. If you do not hear a drop, please squawk the airplane. Before leaving the aircraft, always ensure everything is off. Lastly, if you're walking around an aircraft with engines running, always walk behind the aircraft and always brief your passengers and visitors on safe entry and exit from the aircraft. If you have any questions, please see your instructors or the flight safety team. Thank you, and watch out for those propellers.
You know, if you're like me, and God help you if you are, there's nothing you love more in Arizona than Taco Tuesdays and Taco Wednesdays, Taco Thursdays, Taco Fridays, Taco Saturday. Yeah, it's a very sensitive subject, and thank you ever so much for pointing it out to me. I could tell you're like, look at that guy. Why don't you give me a nice paper cut and rub some salt and lemon juice in it while you're at it? My solution to that is I spend a lot of time out on the flight line walking around so I can work this off. And the one thing that kind of scares me when I'm out there on the flight line is an airplane, you know, they're going through the process, so we're going to start up, and then they yell, "Clear prop." Clear prop. Crank, 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 crank. Ah! No. When you yell out, clear prop, I want you to say it loud and say it proud. Clear prop.
Clear prop.
Is that the best you can do? Say it loud, say it proud. Clear prop.
Clear prop.
Oh, outstanding. I love it. And so when you say clear prop, I want your eyeballs out there looking around, because there might be, a group of middle schoolers who are getting a tour of CAE. You don't want to grind them up. So you're up there. Yeah. Whew. You're visualizing. Oh, gross. Oh, okay. Flight canceled, frat form. We want you to look around, because Kevin might be out there saying, whoa, hey, I was checking the thing with the thing. It's like, okay. And then you've looked around and then your instructor says, hey, did you do the checklist thing? It's like, oh, I forgot to do that. And you're in the cockpit and you're looking, say it again, look around, clear prop, looks good, and then you crank it. That's very important. Kevin?
Yeah, so the thing is there's some other issues that you guys need to take, to kind of be aware of, okay? We have a helicopter facility right next door to us, okay? And when the helicopters come over, they come right over the building, okay? Sometimes they sound like they're coming in the building because of the bell. You got the big Hueys, the 206s, they come right over. The other day we had an Osprey that landed over there, okay? So when they come over the building and land over at hill opponents, just be careful just kind of be aware of your surroundings, okay? Situational awareness is really big out here on the ramp. Make sure you have your vest on, and I know it's one of those things where a lot of people kind of go, I'm not gonna put my vest on today. Put it on, okay? Because when you walk around out there, it's very hard to see, especially in the morning when it's dark here. We have lights up on top of the building, but the Falcon Field does not have any regular lighting out there, and it's very, very dark in the morning. Now our days are getting longer, which is good, but the reality is that with that vest on, it's got a reflective material on there to make sure that everyone is seen out there, okay?
And eventually you're going to get so used to it, it's going to be second nature.
Right.
In fact, if you go out there without your vest on and you realize, oh, no, I didn't have my vest, you're going to feel all, naked and vulnerable and stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that the police, the Mesa Police Department, they have got a Hughes 500 that they park right over next to Marsh Aviation. And they'll come in, they'll come in from the other side, but sometimes what they'll do is they'll come in and land depending on where their windsock is at, okay? So the helicopters are the big thing. Across the field, we have MD helicopters over there that they go ahead and they build the no-tar rotors over there for their helicopters. And sometimes we will get those. The other big thing is that we have a lot of transient people out here that are parked at this airport that drive their cars through here, and they're hauling butt to get down to look at the P-51 that is taken off down from the Confederate Air Force, okay? So those are the other people. It's not you guys, it's the other people that we're worried about, okay? So make sure you have that vest on, make sure you're aware of the traffic around here, okay? And as far as the lighting goes, please make sure that you have a flashlight, a working flashlight, so that if you do get into those dark areas, at least you have some kind of light to go ahead and walk out to the aircraft, okay?
Did you know that I hang out with the guys over at the police department with that Hughes 500?
I did know that.
Oh, man. And when you talk about how they take off and they'll fly right over the flight line, like real close, and they'll wave at you. Well, get this. Last time I was out there, they said, hey, Eric, would you like to go for a helicopter ride? And I said, yeah, I want to go for a helicopter ride. So they told me that we're going to wait until it gets a little bit warm, and they're going to have the doors off, and they're going to strap me in that sucker, and we're going to go fly around, and I'm going to look at all you guys who are flying your fixed wings and say, look at me, suckers. Rotary wing guy right here. And then, that's going to be so much fun. And then I'll bring back information on that for safety purposes, so that they don't think I'm just goofing off on them.
Yeah, so watch that route, just stay right next to the hill opponents, and if you have to walk all the way down by the tower, stay close to the one side to where If you walk down, then just find your aircraft and then just walk straight across. It's a lot better that way, okay? The other thing too is, like I said, the traffic, it's not just the cars, but it's the transit airplanes out there that they taxi very fast. There's a lot of home builds out here. So I want you to kind of be aware of those. They feel as that they own the airport out here, being that they have been here for so long, and some of them will take off and they're 50 feet off the deck and they'll go ahead and make a right-hand turn, okay? So when you're up in the air, be looking around, put your head on a swivel and be looking outside, okay? Don't be, looking inside the cockpit for certain things. Be looking outside. We've got a lot of schools out here. United Airlines just started a school out there in Goodyear, and they're going to be training anywhere from 5 to 700 pilots a year out there, okay? That's just one school. At Falcon Field, we've got 5, okay? And they're flying just as much as we are, okay? So when you're up there, please be looking around, look outside, be looking everywhere for other aircraft, okay? It's very, very important. The traffic out here has gotten horrible, and the airspace has gotten a lot more dense, okay? So please be looking around.
So we're almost right on time. We're just a little 5 minutes over. Do you guys have a class or anything right after this? All right.
Nothing?
If anybody has any questions or things they want to talk about, we'll be happy to stick around and help you out. Or if we don't know the answer, we'll point you in the right direction. But if not, thank you for attending our fun little the Kevin and Eric Safety Show. Thank you.